Muslims in Norway are now establishing a masjid and dawah center to enhance the Norwegian dawah. If you donate to this cause, you will inshallah reap the rewards of thousands of Muslims coming back to Islam, and many of those will become du'at and invite to Islam. So click the link and donate now and share the video for extra reward. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you guys doing? I'm here joined with a Big Z. Big Z or Z plus. What should I call you?
I think Big Z, because then Ali's gonna get upset in it.
Okay.
He's A plus.
Okay, Big Z, Big Z.
Or you can say the big dog, or the man with the plan,
Man with the plan.
or just the
Zero.
legend. Oh, okay.
Zero, huh?
Just stick with
Because
that.
you brought yourself too high, so I had to, you know what I mean? I had to give you
Put me in my
pie.
place.
Humble
Just
pie.
like Kevin Samuels, I think. Just like he's putting Nicki in her place. No?
Actually, to be fair, like I made a video, as you know, critical
Yeah.
of Samuels, because
Yeah.
you know I just saw it as a reaction to feminism, like this kind of like red pill movement and stuff like that, and I thought I actually saw a lot of Muslim people moving in that direction, and I didn't like it because I realized the problems with it. But to be fair,
Yeah.
I think we just both watched this, you know, these aspects of his video that he done with Nicki Minaj,
Yeah.
and I think there's praise that is actually due here because he handled himself quite well. Despite that, I do think there are areas of criticism as well, so we'll be looking at some of that. But before that, I think let's look at two main aspects.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get straight into it. Two main aspects of this video that I wanted to react to, yeah, which kind of starts in the middle, where Nicki herself, who is, kind of, to be honest with you, I don't know much about her, but from what I know, she's a figure of decadence, and if someone could personify decadence, it would be this woman. You know, nothing intellectual contributed at all. She thinks she's a success. We'll come to all of that. Starts off by speaking about, you know, success, funny enough, and these other things. So I wanted to see what she has to say coming onto this platform, and then how we can look also at how Kevin responds. So let's first take a look at what her prerogative is here.
I'm talking to black women real quick. Can we stop posting all day on TikTok? Because I newly went to TikTok and I just kept seeing this. Black women, can we stop talking about if black men, if these successful black men want us or not? Like, can we just focus on us and we be successful, and then we go out there and we decide who the fuck we want? So
what I see with this Zishan, bro, is like it's typical independence narrative, success narrative. She's talking about she's a success, or what is success? I mean, is success being famous, being rich? I'm sorry to say, these are assumptions which cannot be justified. And who are you anyway, Nicki, to speak to black women as if you represent them? You don't represent them. You represent higher echelon type individual Western women. You don't actually suffer from the same plights as the majority of black people will suffer from, black men or women. And you don't have even a right to call yourself a success because you are rich and famous. Success is not defined like that for us, is it, Zishan?
No, because if you define success as richness or fame, these are two things that don't have an ending. Like money, there's always more money that you can attain. With fame, there's always more fame that you can attain. You'll never be able to reach the pinnacle.
Absolutely. And like in our tradition, the Islamic tradition, the Prophet Mohammed ﷺ, he said that if you give a man, you know, a valley of gold, you know, he'll be hungry for another valley. So in other words, there's always, the thing is, having material wealth, as you say, it doesn't quench your thirst for these kinds of things. You'll just want more and more and more.
Yeah.
And so really, there is no strong positive correlation, for example, with happiness as a state and material wealth. You'll find, unfortunately, a lot of the richest people in society,
Yes.
and the most famous, are those who are most depressed.
Yes.
So this idea of equating success with fame and money, this capitalistic idea, which you have been colonized into believing is the case, is itself difficult to substantiate from the very beginning.
Yes.
So this is the first thing. The independence narrative here, I think, is problematic as well. But before we go there, I want to see how Kevin Samuels responds to her.
There's a lot of hurt on both sides. And I told guys, look, while you're under 30, work on getting yourself together, because like it or not, you're really not in a position like you should be to be able to work with, lead, do anything like that.
So as you see, he starts off by saying there's a lot of hurt from both sides. Now, this is atypical of Kevin Samuels, because usually if a woman hypes up like that to him in his presence discussions, he will actually shut her down or even switch her off or something. But I think he's being strategic here, and he's got good emotional intelligence here to be praiseworthy of him. Yeah. However, his narrative is as good as hers in the sense that he is also telling men to just focus on themselves. It's an egoistic gender narrative on both sides. And if it's an egoistic gender narrative on both sides, what you're going to end up having is an atomized society with people only caring about themselves. They don't realize that complementarity is needed in order to avoid conflict of interest in the first place. Like, at the end of the day, if men just think about themselves and work on themselves, not caring about the opposite gender or having apathetic attitudes, and the opposite is true, imagine what that will do to the black community. My question is simple. Why are the adults making themselves the center of this project? Seldomly do I find in these conversations that children are put first. Like, children are put first. We know through the data that nuclear families and stable families are the most advantageous for children. Okay? But for nuclear families to be functional, there has to be compromise on both sides. I would call it like the individualistic narratives of the West. Yeah. It is. Because at the end of the day, like 100 years ago, he mentions this, to be fair to him, Kevin Samuels mentions this in some of his discussions. He says, your grandma wouldn't be speaking like that. Yeah. And he's right. Do you know what? He's right. Her grandma, whoever she's speaking to, wouldn't be speaking like that, because she'd have a more traditional complementarian nuclear type understanding of the family. But do you know what else is true? His granddad wouldn't be speaking the way he's speaking either. That's the truth as well. Like, his granddad will be thinking about, how do I provide for the kids? How do I make a family stable? How this and that. The problem is not just with one gender or another. It's both genders realizing individual responsibility and recognizing individual weakness, and then working together to try and sort that out. And you mentioned something, a verse in the Qur'an. Do you want to explain?
Yeah, so I think this whole complementarianism is something which is mentioned by the Qur'an to the nearest meaning when it says, you are garments for them and they are garments for you, referring to a husband and a wife.
Yeah.
And this issue that you're talking about of individualism is something which is, it's a disease that's coming from capitalism, and it's
That's
something
right.
which is obviously rooted in liberalism, which talks about individual benefit. And of course, an offshoot of that is human rights, which talks about what we're owed and not what we owe others. There's no human right that talks about the rights of your mother or the rights of your father. And this is a problem. And liberalism is something which is being shoved down our throat. And we're seeing this in France. This is where we're seeing the hijab being banned. And we're seeing this now in Saudi Arabia, where you've got, liberalism being injected into the community and other communities. So liberalism is an issue, and that's why liberalism does need to come under the microscope, because it is what is telling us, look, the individual and your pleasure and your pain, as long as it doesn't affect others, it's fine.
It's all, do you know what it is? It's ethical egoism. It's not just psychological ego. The difference being is ethical egoism is like, psychological egoism is about me. It's about me, yeah? It's about my pain and pleasure. And a lot of us are like that by nature. But ethical egoism is where you say, it ought to be about my pleasure first. Yeah. And what we're seeing really with this kind of conversation is a proliferation of ethical, egoistic gender discourses, yeah? So both of them are just concerned with each other. Okay, well, black women shouldn't do this, blah, 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 blah. It's no care for the kids. Same thing with him. No care for the kids, no care for the other gender. It's a very selfish discourse either way. But let's move on to something else that he mentions. Controversially, I guess. She asks him, how many times should a man expect to have sex? Let's take a look at what she asks and how he responds.
How many times should a man expect to have sex? What is, in your opinion, how many times should a woman give their man sex a week?
A week?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a fan of the as often as he wants
it. No, hold on.
Because here's the thing. Here's the thing. You look at, like I said, I look at guys, most guys I'm talking to are working 10, 12-hour days.
So I actually respect the way he responds there, and she didn't really have much pushback after what he said. which is surprising, to be honest. But I respect the fact that he's stuck to his kind of guns on this one, because at the end of the day, it's, once again, sex is one of those things, okay, which is a weakness for men, more so than it is for women. It's one of those things. And let me tell you something, you know, as many of the viewers know, like Muslim women have to wear hijab, which is more encompassing than what a man has to cover, and so on and so forth, yeah? And a lot of people come, Muslim and non-Muslim alike, and they say, like, why should a woman cover up for the weakness of a man? That is the wrong... Why not? The question is, why not? Why should a man cover up for the weakness of a woman? If certain things, certain events, a fire happened, women and children come out first, or a war happened, the men are on the front line. These things are clear. That there are some things that men are stronger than women at, and some things that women are stronger than men at. And that's why the Qur'an beautifully expresses this in one sentence. وَخُلِقَ الْإِنسَانَ ضَعِيفًا. The human being he's been created weak. The human being has been created weak. And in fact, in this context, it's talking about sexual weakness. And so, yeah, the idea of a man having intercourse, or the woman helping, really facilitating for the man, something which would otherwise be his weakness, something which would otherwise, if it's not done, it can cause greater societal decadence and decay, because he's going to go try and find it elsewhere. It could,
that's the bottom line, isn't it?
pathological behavior will start to emerge. It will destabilize families, and all kinds of other things happen. He might start to find her, you know, he might be put off her, to be honest with you. It might be a horrible thing for him. So yeah, this is it. We're not advocating, obviously, some stupid person's going to come out and say, oh, what are you talking about, rape or something? Obviously, we're not. If a woman doesn't want to give it, you can't take it from her like that, because you can't cause anyone harm in Islam. That's what we believe anyway. But
yeah,
the fact that a woman wouldn't want to give it to a man anyways is the mark of a dysfunctional relationship.
Yeah,
it is a mark of it. But I respect the fact that he's coming out saying this, because you won't find many people coming out, men saying it in the way that he said that. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think you made a good point. Unfortunately and sadly, in this day and age, especially in sitcoms, when you see a husband and a wife, sex is actually used as a weapon. It's actually used as a weapon. Kids are used as weapons, and when you start using these things as weapons, then what you're doing is you are breaking that family up. And if a man can't get it at home, if a woman can't get it at home, then I mean the question now arises: where else are they going to get it from?
Well, she does mention women here. Should we listen to what she has to say before we continue, or let's do it?
You know, a lot of people throughout my life would tell me that I'm like a man, because I remember people would tell me I shouldn't expect as a woman to have a climax every time I do it, right? Hi, Hilton. And I said, excuse me, are you out of your fucking mind? Why wouldn't I want to climax every time I have intercourse, just like you want to climax when you have intercourse? And I was accused of being like a man. Not in my, you know, this is years ago. And I knew that wasn't going to work, child. Because it's not only about you.
Okay, well, I mean, yeah, I think you were mentioning it before as well, that this is something that in Islam, when you look at the literature, this is something that's emphasized, that it's not just about the man's pleasure, it is about the female's pleasure as well. I mean, just like when we're talking about complementarianism and we're talking about both parties, then this actually fits in very well to that.
I agree. A lot of men, and the Prophet gave explicit advice as like not to come in and go out straight away, even to warm up a woman, to foreplay, all that kind of stuff.
Foreplay,
very specific. This shows you this comprehensiveness of the guidance of Islam. Like, women work in a different sexual manner to men. And I'll tell you something, brother. Like, honestly, a lot of men, we talk about men withholding in sexual marriages and stuff, but also women withholding, but men withhold as well. Sometimes, like, and that is, if you want to destroy your marriage as a man, then the first thing you'll do is ignore your woman's sexual needs.
Unnecessarily.
Yeah, you know, unnecessarily, of course. But either way, it's unnecessary. Like, in the sense that, why you...
No, because in the Qur'an, it does say that you can...
right, yeah, of course. If she's unnecessarily in the sense that, you know, it's not because she's acting rebelliously or something like that, or nushuz. Of course, good point. But, like, what I'm saying is, exactly, do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, if she wants something and you're ignoring that, men need to also realize that this is a quick way to break a family. And then do you not think that you're going to cause her fitna? Do you not think, does a man not think that by leaving his wife sexual needs, and she wants to do something and she's prodding him and she wants to, you know, engage sexually with him, and he's like kind of like giving her the cold shoulder or on his phone or something like that, does he not think that he's now destroying the family and that he's making a fitna for himself and for his family?
Yeah.
So it's at the same time, like, we have to be fair here and just. Islam it gives, actually, if a man can't sexually satisfy a woman, and it continues, and he's stopping herself, there's very strong grounds for a divorce here. There's actually, I'm not saying that a woman should do that. She should obviously try and وَالصُّلْحُ خَيْرٌ, as the Qur'an says, try and reconcile, whatever. But
when you're saying that there's grounds for divorce, it shows how serious of an issue that it is.
You cannot withhold from either party, and this goes back to the complementarian point. But so we agree with that. But generally now, before we close off, what do you think of this conversation back and forth? We've already talked about what's conspicuously kind of missing here, which is mention of the children, and these conversations, they always disregard the children in family settings. What else would you say is missing, or should have been added, or could have been?
I think what's interesting here is someone like myself, or when I was initially watching it, I expected Kevin Samuels to go in full guns blazing and just smash her to bits and stuff like that, because that's what he's known for. Or I was expecting Nicki to be very blasé and very kind of loud and, very, I'm going to represent for the people and all these women, and I'm going to lay it on him. I think both of them were clever in their approach. Kevin respected her, and she respected him. And I think we were discussing before as well that I think he maneuvered himself very well in that discussion. So in that sort of sense.
On that point, actually, you make a good point, because at the end of it is like, this actually, it might seem like rude, trivial, I guess. But at the end, he was like, I need to go now. And I know that might seem like something trivial, but I think it was premeditated, personally, and I think that actually speaks volumes to the kind of thing, as Muslim men, because it's not just, we're not here to criticize only Kevin and Nicki. Well, Nicki, we should be criticizing, to be honest. She's, from the looks of it, a completely decadent character. But with Kevin, at least, there are some things which Muslim men can actually learn from. And this is one of them. If you look at the end of this conversation, he's like, have you got any more questions? Because I need to leave.
Well, good to be on here with you. You got any other questions? Because I got to get packed.
But the phraseology is actually very telling here. Have you got any questions? So he's the one that's being questioned, He's put himself in the edifying position. He's the teacher. Because I need to, go whatever, Meaning, I've got things to do. I don't value you as much as you think you value yourself. He's not saying that in explicit terms, but he's gesturing it through implicit action, because he knows if he does it explicitly, he's risking putting his reputation at risk with someone of her social profile, who is at least seen in society as successful, although she is not, according to us. What do you think of that kind of maneuvering, bro?
So there's websites nowadays in which people go and they unlock pictures, and they spend extortionate amounts of money just so they can interact with women. And there's a term which has been coined called simping, where even in games, people pay extortionate amounts to female gamers just so they can kind of sit there and simp over them and stuff like that. So this has become a big problem in our society. And for us to
is it there in the Asian community as much? Like, it's
in every community, unfortunately and sadly.
As a Pakistani, bro, you tell us what's happening in the subcontinental.
It's in every community that I've seen. Because the world's become a global village. It's not.
I think we're okay.
You know the highest consumers of pornography and stuff like that is actually in the
pornography is different though. We're talking about this groveling attitude that we call simping, he exemplifies a good example.
But even when you look at the Economic Hitman by John Perkins, he actually talks about people that are higher up in certain Arab countries.
You're trying to throw us under the bus, brother. You hear that? You hear the unsubscribe?
Where they pay extortionate amounts just to get white women and stuff like that. This is post-colonial simping. That's what it is. So in that sense, to see somebody like this, because Nicki at the start, she actually rated herself as a 7.
No, she did that too. She doesn't. But bro,
she did, which was interesting. But then,
can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know. Wallahi uqsam billahi al-azim, I've not heard a single song from this woman. I don't know who this woman is,
Right.
I had to research her after I saw this thing with this guy,
Okay.
I'm not just saying that. I know she's famous, but she thinks she's famous and important. I don't think she is.
Right.
Bro, he rated her 9 out of 10, right?
He did, yeah.
I mean, is that something you would say is accurate? I mean, do you think he's doing that to kind of boost her ego or something, bro?
I think he is, because it was very interesting, because I think you made the point. You said at the start, when he increased her rating, the conversation took a different turn. Imagine if he gave like a 4, which
Bro,
I think would be accurate.
I checked. Let me tell you something. Sorry to say, but I checked the Wikipedia page of this individual, yeah, and I saw that she was like 40. Like on his standards, I don't see how his subjective measuring stick is all over, because on a 40-year-old woman for him, well, he says over 35 is gone. So how could he be giving her that number?
I think maybe it was a strategic move, because I think with any of these celebrities,
so that means his rating system is flawed, bro.
Or maybe this was like exceptionalism. Maybe it was one-off that he was just trying to
protect himself.
Protect himself and stuff like that. Because imagine if he upset Nicki and then he's getting a barrage of thousands of messages.
After the ejaculation, after the orgasm, yeah? After both parties or one of them orgasms, the male orgasms or whatever.
Yeah.
What is there left? What is there? What is there to do?
Spooning.
I can't. No. What I mean is, that's done now. Okay. You have a very beautiful, voluptuous physique. Whatever. I've relieved myself in you. No problem. Now what? No. Seriously. Now what? Are we gonna have tea? Are we gonna eat food? Are we gonna talk?
Yeah,
because at the end of the day, you're not having sex all day. They were talking about sex for 1/3 of the conversation. You're not having sex all day. If it's going to be a superficial reality, then I'm really sorry. It's going to break families. She's going to be unsatisfied intellectually, mentally, in every other way. The communities are going to break down. As I said, it's just egoism on steroids.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point and a very good summary. And I think it proves and it shows that Islam has the holistic kind of view. You can go to isms and schisms and some things that these people say sound very nice and videos going viral, but at the end of the day, Islam is the deen that comes from our Lord. We have the pixel, he has the picture, and if you want a holistic, unapologetic, objective view on life, then Islam is for you and for me.
That's right. So you know what to do. Nicki Minaj, you convert to Islam, you can start being successful, because the Qur'an says, and I'm going to end with this, which is by time, 𝙗𝙪𝙞𝙾 𝙤𝙤𝙪𝙞 لَفِي خُسْرٍ, that certainly human being is in a state of loss. You're a failure, you're a loser, you're unsuccessful. All of us are. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, except for those who believe, وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, and they do good works, yeah. وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ, and they exhort one another to truth. وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ, and they exhort one another to patience. That's true success. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Muslims in Norway are now establishing a Masjid and Dawah Center to enhance the Norwegian Dawah. If you donate to this cause, you will inshallah reap the rewards of thousands of Muslims coming back to Islam, and many of those will become du'at and invite to Islam. So click the link and donate now and share the video for extra rewards.